What are the most common mistakes small business owners make when working with a bookkeeper? That's the question we're answering today on the Profit Pillars Show. I'm your host, Parker Stevenson, CEO of the accounting firm Evolve Finance and author of the book Profit Pillars. So this question is one that I think is going to have some surprising answers because for a lot of business owners, you're putting supreme trust into your bookkeeper because they have a skill set and a knowledge base that you will likely have very little of. Even if you've attempted to do your own bookkeeping in QuickBooks, you probably didn't accumulate that much knowledge or develop that many bookkeeping skills. So when you work with a professional bookkeeper, you're still putting a lot of trust in their hands. But it's important that you know how to manage a bookkeeper and what to look out for. And in some of the other episodes, we've talked about like what should a bookkeeper be doing for you and what should you be thinking about in terms of managing them and what are your expectations around the work they're doing. But I want to focus on the mistakes I see business owners make. And the reason I know about these mistakes is because for the last 11 years, when a new client comes to work with us, they're usually sharing a story around how they kind of missed the mark with their last bookkeeper. They chose the wrong bookkeeper or just didn't ever get on the same page with their bookkeeper. And so I want to cover some of the most common mistakes I've seen, so hopefully you don't have to make them with your bookkeeper. So here's the first mistake. And this is something I would say bigger businesses really fall into the trap of. And that's trying to build all their financial systems within their bookkeeping software. QuickBooks Online can do a lot of things, but they don't do a lot of those things well. And unless there's an alternative to QuickBooks that allows you to do everything in one place and do it really well, maybe that'll happen one day, or maybe QuickBooks or Xero or whoever will create software that allows you to do all the things really, really well, all the financial things at least, but it doesn't exist. Now, our whole team are QuickBooks Online experts. My business partner and I know how to get through QuickBooks really well, especially my business partner. He knows even more than I do. And we do not do everything in QuickBooks. We don't invoice in QuickBooks. We do not forecast and budget in QuickBooks. We just do the bookkeeping. We don't 1099 in QuickBooks. We don't use QuickBooks to file taxes. Just like with marketing software, right? I'm not a big fan of marketing software that says it can do everything, because anyone who says they have an all-in-one solution, usually what they're saying is, we have a bunch of tools and add-ons that are all going to be very mediocre. Now I know this is kind of a very generalized opinion here on all-in-one tools, but usually if a task or a process or a function in your business is really, really important, you want to build the collection of tools necessary to run that function properly. And finance is definitely one of those things. I get that a lot of business owners want to have everything centralized in something like QuickBooks Online. Can we do the budgeting in there? Can we do the bill pay? Can we do the 1099? Can we just do everything in QuickBooks? And it usually just makes a mess out of everything. And a lot of those functions aren't great anyways. There's other external softwares and apps and options, just general options that are going to be way better than what QuickBooks can do. But the one thing QuickBooks is really good at doing is bookkeeping. That's why we use their bookkeeping software. It's the standard in our industry, and it does work really, really well. That's what it was built around. So it's okay if you have your bookkeeping software and you're taking the data from your bookkeeping software and putting it in a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are your friend. I think a lot of business owners think that when they put together what they would consider their janky little spreadsheets and like, I don't know, we're just winging it. We're just putting stuff together here. That's fine. There are multinational corporations being ran by a bunch of people with a bunch of spreadsheets. There are more tools now beyond spreadsheets. Like there are, I think, businesses and financial professionals who are using like reporting software and maybe different variations of spreadsheets that are a little more advanced. But for the most part, spreadsheets are still pretty good. And so there's no shame in taking the data from your books, putting it into a spreadsheet to do your forecasting and budgeting, to run the numbers on different scenarios. And, for us at Evolve Finance, like I wouldn't say, hey, go do your own 1099s, but we have 1099 software. We have different tax software. We use different payroll software. We don't use all that in QuickBooks, and we're QuickBooks experts. We want to find the tools that are the best at what they do. And bookkeeping software tends to be really good at bookkeeping and maybe mediocre at best doing all the other things. So find the other tools that you need outside of your bookkeeping software and use those. Don't try to make your bookkeeping software the centralized place for all things finance in your business. It's not going to work out the way you're hoping it will. Now, the next thing I see bookkeepers or business owners make mistakes on with their bookkeepers is moving to accrual accounting too soon. So there are two different types of accounting that a business can do. It can be accrual accounting or cash basis accounting. Cash basis accounting is the most straightforward because you record all of the transactions that are happening in your business just like they show up in your bank account. When the transaction happens is when it shows up on your books. With accrual, you can move around transactions a bit more. You have flexibility around when you want to record, like for instance, when your income comes in. If you want to show that once you send an invoice to a client, that's the month that you received the income, but still you're going to have to wait to see when the client actually pays you, but you're allowed to record that income in the month you invoice it. It doesn't have to be in the month that you actually receive it. And there are benefits for certain businesses doing this, especially much larger businesses. And actually, when your business gets large enough, eventually you do have to move to accrual. But the reason the IRS doesn't make all businesses use accrual accounting is because it's complicated and it can get expensive to have a bookkeeper managing your books in accrual because there's way more detail that goes into understanding what's going on with your transactions. And a lot of business owners get sold on accrual, especially if they have like private equity involved or investors, because it is easier to do the forecasting and budgeting sort of within the books because while you're accepting transactions and say, cool, we received X amount of dollars on this day, you can also go, well, we're going to expect the next payment next month on this day, and then the next payment 2 months from then on this day. And so you're kind of mapping out how much money you think is coming in, as well as mapping out when you're going to be paying bills ahead of time. So you're sort of doing your forecasting and budgeting while also doing your bookkeeping for what's actually happening in your business right now. And that takes a lot more, a bookkeeper who's a lot more involved in your business, who's really organized and understands the nuance of accrual bookkeeping. But it gets expensive, especially if you want a team to do it right. And also you as a business owner then have to wrap your head around your financial reports and understand, is this real money? Is this just the way the money looks from an accrual standpoint? So it complicates everything. But again, accrual is a necessary accounting system when you get to a certain size or if you have a certain type of business model. But otherwise, stay on cash basis as long as you can. You can always do forecasts and budgets in a spreadsheet, which can happen outside of your bookkeeper. You can simply let your bookkeeper be really, really, really good at doing cash-based bookkeeping and accounting. And then either you, someone on your team, an external partner can then take that bookkeeping data and put it into a forecast and budget. And that's usually going to be the simplest and most flexible way to sort of paint a picture of what's going on with the future of your business while also keeping the bookkeeping for what's happened in your business in the past much more simple, and also makes it a lot less expensive to do the bookkeeping. Now, another mistake we see business owners make is paying for weekly bookkeeping when monthly is all you need. Because we've kind of talked about this before. There are some accounting firms, especially more tech-oriented accounting firms, who are like, oh, we're using AI and it's going to update your books every single day or every single week. And ultimately, there are errors that can happen when doing that on a weekly, especially a daily basis or a weekly basis, that just simply accepting transactions doesn't mean the transactions are correct. At the end of the month, you eventually need to reconcile it. And after you reconcile it, that's when you can really trust that the data is accurate. Otherwise, when you're accepting it on a weekly or daily basis, it'll give you a rough idea of what's going on, but you can't really trust that data until it's fully reconciled. And if a bookkeeper is going to be reconciling your data on a weekly basis, they're probably going to charge you a lot of money. And chances are they're probably not even going to do it right because there's so much complexity that can go into that. But I'm also a big believer, like, we run a pretty big firm. We have clients that have very healthy businesses, and they don't need weekly bookkeeping. They're fine with the monthly bookkeeping because ultimately your books are meant to show you financial trends, not necessarily to manage cash flow. If you have cash flow issues in your business where you're always worried about running out of money, then chances are you don't need weekly bookkeeping. You need better financial systems, and you need to plan ahead a little more. And that's something a potential financial consultant or fractional CFO, even on a project basis, could come in, help you set up a better system for managing cash flow and making sure you're not going to run out of money. Because a lot of the times that just means better planning. Not like, hey, let's do bookkeeping every single day, because ultimately the bookkeeping is not going to solve the problem. Getting your head wrapped around your cash flow and putting together a better plan for how you're going to receive money and spend money, that's going to be how you're actually going to fix your cash flow issues, especially for online businesses, where a lot of times online businesses have the potential to be super profitable. So a lot of the times there just needs to be some things fixed with how you're spending money, how you're receiving money, how you're planning for the future, and paying a lot more for weekly bookkeeping is not going to be the solution most business owners think it's going to be. Now, another mistake business owners make is they simply pay for the bookkeeping but never actually look at the data. Now, I can understand if your business is really new, really small, there's not a lot of complexity, and you're like, man, I can tell you exactly how much money we made last month and what we spent our money on. It's all in my head. Cool, I get that. But the larger your business becomes, the less you're going to be able to keep track of all that. And so half of the value of what your bookkeeper does, and I would even argue it's more than half. Yes, you want your bookkeeper doing your books so you can file your taxes and not go to jail for tax fraud. But also, the reason you want your books done every month is so you can keep up with what's going on with your business. How much money are you making? How much money are you spending? What's your profitability? There is so much value and insight to be gleaned from your bookkeeping, from your financial reports. So if you never look at them, then you're really not getting the full value from your bookkeeper, and you're not really getting the full strategic insights you need to be inputting in order to make the best decisions for your business possible. Now, I know a lot of business owners don't want to look at their numbers because they're ashamed of what their numbers look like, or they're afraid of what the numbers are going to look like. And there's just some fear around what those numbers are really telling them about the business and maybe some of the decisions they have to make. Or maybe it's a reflection of feeling like they're not making good decisions and they feel bad about it. I get it. There's so much emotion that can live behind the numbers on that P&L, especially for the business owner having to look at those numbers. And that's why my book, Profit Pillars, my book is here and it's covered with my notebook and other things. But the first 3 chapters all address why it's so hard for business owners to look at their numbers and why it can be such an emotional experience. And trust me, I've seen it bubble up in a bunch of different business owners. So if you're sitting there going, oh, I feel bad that I don't feel better about my numbers, I don't want to look at that, it's fine. Like, you're not alone. But I really recommend, if you haven't purchased my book, Profit Pillars, check out those first 3 chapters, because there's a lot that we go over in it that will maybe help you to reshape the way you look at the numbers in your business. But ultimately, the numbers in your business are trying to give you the truth. They're just trying to tell you, this is your scorecard. This is the truth of what's going on in your business. The sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can take the course of action you need to fix issues in your business, or even better, jump on opportunities in your business. And the more financially literate you get, the better business owner you're going to become. I've never met anyone who's gotten more financially literate and has gotten worse as an entrepreneur. So I get all the reasons why people don't want to look at those numbers, but whatever you got to do to get right with looking at your numbers, do it, because you are missing out on tremendous insight that your bookkeeper is trying to provide you by doing your books and delivering your financial reports each month. So don't miss out on that. Look at the numbers your bookkeeper is providing you, assuming they're actually doing so. Now, mixing personal and business finances. That's another mistake a lot of business owners make with their bookkeeper. They go, oh, I got a bookkeeper now. I can just, I'm not keeping track of my books. So now I'm just going to, spend money from my business account or my personal account or whatever. My bookkeeper will take care of it. That is a surefire way to get your bookkeeper to actually want to fire you and not want to work with you. But also it's a way that even if your bookkeeper does stick with you while you're mixing business and personal, likely a lot of mistakes are going to be made, and a lot more work's going to come onto your plate, because your bookkeeper is going to have to now go, is this a business expense? Is this a personal expense? Like, what's going on here, business owner? And so you have to start explaining it to them. And then if you're not taking the time to explain it to them, they're probably going to be conservative and just not write it off. They're going to put it under profit distribution, because if you're not giving them the answer, they don't want to take the risk that they're going to be writing off stuff that could potentially get you audited or get them in trouble for putting personal expenses onto the books. So do yourself a favor, keep your business and personal finances as separate as you possibly can. Your bookkeeper and your accountant will thank you. Now, lastly, the last mistake here I think a lot of business owners make with their bookkeepers is working with the cheapest bookkeeper they can find. And again, if your business is small, you have a very small budget, but you have enough transactions going on, you can't manage it yourself anymore, and you just have to find a bookkeeper to get something into some bookkeeping software, then I get why you need to be on a budget. But if you're making a living from your business, a certain amount of income that is crucial to your personal financial situation, why would you look for the cheapest bookkeeper you can find? Because you get what you pay for. I say this all the time. When you work with a bookkeeper whose only value proposition is they're cheap, the mistakes they can make and the impact it can have on your business and on your taxes is pretty extreme. If you had a $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month ad budget, are you going to look for the cheapest ad agency to manage that budget for you? Of course not, because you want someone that's going to do a good job of managing those ads so you get an actual chance to get a return on your investment. And when you hire a bookkeeper that's super cheap, you're essentially saying this, I'm just washing this money down the drain, because the only ROI you're getting is that you get a little bit of tax compliance. When you work with a bookkeeper who's a partner, who cares about doing the work right, who delivers the financial data to you in a way that helps you gain insights and run your business better, there's an ROI there, and it can be invaluable. So if you are running an online business, a modern small business, and you're still paying the cheapest bookkeeper you can find, you're missing out not only on having a much better experience, but getting a true ROI from your bookkeeping instead of looking at it as a sunk cost simply for tax compliance. But that's all I got for y'all today. If you're looking for a new bookkeeper, want a better bookkeeping experience, obviously check us out at evolvefinance.com. If you're still looking to do the books yourself, but you don't want to use bookkeeping software, you can also check out our bookkeeping spreadsheet that we sell on our website. And as always, if you're looking to dive deeper and to understand how the financial side of your business works, check out my book, Profit Pillars. It's definitely worth the read, I can promise you. But as always, thank you so much for watching the show, listening to the show, and I'll see you in the next episode.